my friends, welcome. Today we are going to look at the full moon in Virgo to see what energy is surrounding you for this full moon. We have 10 decks here that we're going to use to create 3 piles, and the timestamps will be below for you to choose the pile that resonates highest with you. Now, this full moon in Virgo perfects at 9:40 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on March 7th of this year, and bringing with it this worm moon, as it's called in Virgo, is really asking you to dive deep, to really go within and question and examine and discern, really having a look at what is the true meaning behind your beliefs, the patterns of your behavior, the way you communicate, the things that you believe are true, the logic that you hold, looking at it in a deeper reflective manner to see, does this still make sense for me? Do these patterns still work for me? Do I need to make adjustments? What is my intuition telling me? What are my emotions telling me? Everything is sort of being called into question with this full moon, and it's really an excellent time to make some changes, to really release things that are outdated, that no longer resonate, that you may just be hanging on to because they've been there for a while, or because you've had this belief system about yourself that you've been holding on to because you haven't questioned it, maybe, or you haven't had a look at it to see, does this still feel right to me? Does this feel like I need to be more flexible or adaptable in certain areas? Are there patterns that are holding you back at this time? Virgo is sort of this archetype of being a perfectionist in its purity, and so there may be this sort of emphasis for you to examine things to see, is this fit well for me? Does this feel like what's the right word? Not perfect, but does this feel like I am optimal? That's the word I'm looking for. We're wanting to optimize in this full moon of Virgo. The energy of this full moon is asking you to optimize, to make things more optimal for yourself, and to examine the patterns that are in place now to see if they're optimal. And if they're not optimal, to sort of have a look at what needs some flexibility. Where does adaptation fit in right now? And of course, this is happening within an hour or so of the transit of Saturn into Pisces. And the sun is currently in Pisces, which is giving that beautiful illumination to this full moon. So it's almost like there's this cosmic alignment happening right now. March is a very interesting month for that. So if you're interested in learning more about that, have a look at your chart. If you don't have a chart, there are a lot of free resources online where you can create a natal chart. And if you need assistance with that, you can always reach out, send me a message, and I can help point you in the right direction to create your own chart and have a look to see where things are shifting in the month of March, because there is a lot of activity happening this month. Okay, so as we do with our pick a piles, I'm going to shuffle these decks, and I'll speed it up in the video editing so you don't have to watch me shuffle 10 decks. But I will shuffle so that you can see me create these decks, and whichever deck resonates for you, my friends, the timestamps will be below for you to choose. Okay, I'm going to get started. We'll see you shortly. Okay, my friends, here are your 3 piles. Pile 1, pile 2, and pile 3. So whichever one resonates for you, or you can watch all the readings, however you decide. The timestamps will be down below in the description, and I'll see you in your reading. Pile 1, welcome to your reading. Let's have a look here. Let's get started and see what messages you are going to receive from your pile. Now, I don't often take reversals when I do pick a pile because of the shuffling process. But we'll keep some of these ones that showed up in reverse. Let's leave them in reverse just so we can consider that. Having a look here with you for the first time at these cards. Okay, very interesting. We'll get them all out and then we'll have a look at them individually and together. Okay, very interesting. Pile 1. Okay, your pile is really guiding you to trust. Okay, the card that's really grabbing my attention is this one, Surrender to Trust. Trust yourself and your decisions. Don't be swayed by other people's strong opinions about what to do. Take action and be confident that you have chosen the right path. And we see the Fool coming through in the reverse with that, with this No Place Like Home. And it's interesting because as I look at this Surrender to Trust card with these two, I'm also drawn to this idea of self-sabotage. So are you surrendering to trust or are you self-sabotaging? Seeing the Fool in reverse and No Place Like Home in reverse is sort of guiding me to feel like it's time to do something unfamiliar. It's time to do something that isn't your regular pattern, which is exactly what the full moon in Virgo wants you to look at. Looking at things that are perhaps outdated patterns that are leading to self-sabotage more than growth and expansion. And so this is a very interesting time to allow things that, feel like habits and go-to patterns and things that you almost do without mindfulness, things that you almost do on autopilot, to look at those autopilot functions and disarm them. Disarm the autopilot and really start to engage with things in the moment without having predetermined the path, really surrendering to the trust, and letting you guide you. This is an interesting message here of really tapping into yourself. What feels like you from familiar patterns and what feels like the real you trying to sort of break through those familiar patterns. It's interesting. Because you've also got this Fool that we talked about in reverse. Now, this is a time where you may be taking, the idea of being cautious to a new level. And you're really like, I'm not interested in taking any kind of risk at this time. And I feel like that could be part of this self-sabotage, that you're, pile 1, you may be clinging to patterns and old, outdated ways of doing things that may no longer fit for you. And you might be having sort of some hesitation in really trusting yourself to start something different, new, and unfamiliar. And you might be seeing things that are different, new, and unfamiliar as a risk and thinking to yourself, well, I'm not about taking a risk at this time. And yet exactly the opposite of that is what the guidance is. The guidance for you, pile 1, is to take a risk, to take a leap of faith, to not focus too much on logic at this time. And I know that may sound funny, but you're sort of being guided to allow other senses to be your guide at this time, to kind of throw the map out the window and trust that you will know what you need to do for yourself. And it's interesting because it feels like there is this energy of self-sabotage surrounding you at this time. It says here, when you learn to get out of your own way, there will be no stopping you. Most of the time, it's not others who prevent you from achieving your goals. It's that inner voice that derails those carefully woven plans. And so what I'm feeling with this card is that by not taking a chance and trusting, by not stepping into the unfamiliar, by just stepping outside of the comfort zone. Basically, if I had to summarize the cards so far, I'd say that comfort zone is probably the worst place you could be right now, because it's so limited and you're being guided to sort of step out of your own way. So leaving behind the comfort zone, it's almost like a rebirth is happening here, where you're sort of being pulled out of that cosmic womb that's so comfortable and so consistent and reliable and warm, and it envelops you in this sort of unconditional space of safety. And you're being pulled out of it, and it's time to be reborn into this new process. And it feels like what's happening here is you're really being guided to take the lead on this, to really trust yourself, to get out of your own way, to step out of that comfort zone, to take the lead and the initiative here. This is Aries energy with this Emperor card. And it came through in the upright for you, which tells me that this is time to be determined and focused, which is interesting because of the other astrological events that are happening on March 7th, which there will be another reading for that. But Saturn moving into Pisces is an interesting, you'll have to check that reading out too, because this is really you taking that initiative. This is you taking that focused outlook on what you want to accomplish and going for it, even if it's outside of the comfort zone, even if it's a brand new path that you've never walked before, even if it involves you really trusting yourself and getting out of your own way so that nothing can stop you. I really feel like this card is summarizing it as well. Prosperity lies ahead. This is a new moon card. So it is, I feel like there is an ending and a beginning here for you. An ending coming through in the familiar, in the comfort zone, in the tried and true ways of doing things. It's almost like that's enough. It's enough of that. And it feels like it's enough. Even I feel you might be describing that in that way, thinking to yourself, feeling in yourself that this just, this was working for a long time, but now it's not anymore. It's not working for me anymore to do things this way. I feel like I'm taking 2 steps forward and 20 steps back, and I need to just commit to a new path, commit to doing things in a new way, in a new, taking the lead in a new way that allows me to take risks, to leave the comfort zone, to be adaptable, and to be flexible. We're seeing that flexibility card come through for you, which can really be a time of, being open and kind to yourself in a way that says you don't, just because you've done things in a certain way for however long doesn't mean you can't be adaptable and flexible, because sometimes achieving your true goals means leaving behind things that feel comfortable, and that flexibility feels like it's related to your prosperity, that the more flexible and the more you can trust, the more you will achieve things, the more you will see things shifting. There's that idea that when we want things to change, we have to be open to change, and so often we want things to change, but we don't want our foundation to change. We don't want our patterns to change. We don't want our environment to change. And yet, how else are things supposed to change if those fundamental things stay the same? And so it's interesting. You're getting these 2 wonderful messages here of container and stardust. And I want to bring your attention to the fact that this is card 41 and 42. And I did shuffle these decks before the reading and on camera as well. So you're getting 2 messages in a row that are together in the deck, which to me always sort of points to this idea that you're moving through a process very quickly right now, that things are shifting rather rapidly around you, and you're taking yourself out of these containers. This card is such a fascinating one because it sort of talks about that comfort zone as being a container. And notice how many different little squares are on this card. You have the possibility and the potential for an infinite amount of containers, and you can choose to place yourself in different containers depending on what is going on. And I feel like you're getting this card because you're being asked to leave behind your comfort zone. I feel like that is exactly why this card is showing up, and that by resisting and sort of being firm and saying, I will not leave my comfort zone, I want to be comfortable, we are sort of limiting our ability to expand. And it's interesting because I feel like right now, pile one, you might be sort of having a conflict between energetic boundaries and sort of releasing boundaries altogether. It's interesting. Boundaries, containers, comfort zone. What's going on for pile one seems to involve these limits. And again, please check out the Saturn in Pisces reading. I think it's going to be very applicable to you, pile one, because it really does talk about those boundaries and limits. And right now you're in a place where there is a flow of energetic information coming to you that's asking you to make choices and changes and be flexible around boundaries, limits, and this idea of the spaces that you put yourself in. And I feel like right now you're being reminded with this Stardust card that you are a multidimensional spiritual being having a human experience right now. And so the idea is to not limit yourself, pile one. This is coming through here to ask you to go to the depths of your being, to see the whole picture, to look at how infinite and multidimensional you are, and to know that you can ask any question that you wish to seek deeper. And that can take you out of these containers and into new spaces. And I feel like prosperity lies ahead for you, and that you have this wonderful message of spiritual protection here. So that is here to guide you to know that you have nothing to fear. This is guiding you to unburden yourself of any kind of emotional baggage that may be keeping you in one space or in one container or within a certain comfort zone that's limited. You can set yourself free from that. You can set yourself free from that. The message on the card here says you are being watched over and protected physically, emotionally, and energetically, and that prosperity lies ahead. So take the lead. Don't sabotage yourself by trying to stay in a tiny, small space just because it feels safe. I get it. I understand that sense of safety is important, but right now you're really being guided to stretch beyond that sense of safety. And I feel like there's something that's dissipating. Seeing this beautiful yellow solar plexus chakra says confidence and personal power need to get a boost here, because the same old pattern that you've been living in or sort of feeling safe in is dissipating. This is no longer going to feel like it gives you confidence. This is going to feel like it's holding you back in some way. And so it's very interesting to see this dissipating card, because I feel like that tells me that it's really time to get flexible, adaptable, and to take the lead on things that may be really outside of your comfort zone, pile one. This is a time for you to surrender to trust and to not let others sway you either. So, if in the midst of this, you're sort of chatting with your friends and saying, I think I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to go and buy that ranch that I've been looking at. I don't know why this example's coming up. Maybe someone is thinking about moving into a more rural environment from the city and leaving things that are well established behind to start something new. And your friends are thinking to you, you're going to do what? You're going to go where? You're going to sell your home and move out of this business that you've spent, the last 20 years building, and that's it? And you're like, yeah, that's it. I'm going to take the lead on things and I'm going to go in a new direction, and I'm not going to worry if it doesn't sound logical or realistic to anybody, because to me, this is something that needs to happen now. And I'm not going to prevent my true goals from manifesting and actualizing because of fear or because of this idea of losing security from a comfort zone. I feel like you're starting to discover, pile one, even if it feels uncomfortable, that you're limitless and that your potential to achieve any goal is possible, and that you're not, I feel like it's very, it's a very necessary message right now to say that you might not have supporters in this. You might be walking this path alone. Emperor, Fool. I feel like you're not necessarily going to be encouraged necessarily. You've got to encourage yourself. This is a time of you really being real with yourself and saying, this doesn't work for me anymore, albeit comfortable, albeit safe, albeit predictable. It's just dissipating. This is not feeding my sense of confidence, and I can. You're being guided to really feel like you can do this. Whatever this is for you, pile one, you can do it. And you're being guided to step boldly out of that comfort zone to achieve whatever true goals you have, and to trust that prosperity lies ahead, and to trust that you are protected, and to trust that being flexible, it almost feels like being flexible reminds you that you're having a human experience as a spiritual being, and that there are no limits except for the ones that we create in our minds. And I feel like you're being guided to sort of surrender those limits and to see things as a different kind of reality, one that is new. And seeing that new moon in Taurus is so reassuring to say that your efforts are going to be rewarded, that prosperity lies ahead, that you are a leader for yourself. I feel like pile one might be starting a new business, and that idea of sort of leaving behind something that was very stable and secure but no longer resonates for you is apt. That fits for pile one. You're leaving behind something that used to feel like home, but now it's starting to feel stagnant. And like, if you don't get out of your own way, you will miss out on some goals that you have that are like being guided by your higher self. And I feel like you are making some bold moves here, pile one, or at least you're being guided to. Wow, very interesting. Thank you so much for joining me for this reading, pile one. Feel free to listen to the other readings, or if this was your reading, let me know in the comments how this reading resonated for you, if this is your reading. All right, my friends, thank you so much. We'll see you in the next reading. Pile two, welcome to your reading. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's see what messages pile two will receive. I haven't looked at any of these piles yet. Look at them with you. Oh, very interesting. Okay. Let's get all the cards flipped over here before we begin. You've got quite a few doubles. Oh, very interesting. Okay, pile two. Now, the first card I am drawn to for you is this beautiful change card. Something is shifting for you, and that's a very general message so far, but something is shifting to bring you to a place of authenticity, okay? Something is shifting to push you out of a state of where it almost feels like you've limited yourself with your own beliefs, and you've surrendered or will be surrendering emotional attachments that no longer serve you. And that's going to lead to an immense amount of change. And I feel like you've been working with your higher self in a way where you're really integrating information that allows you to move away from things that, albeit attached by emotional cords, you're no longer resonating with those attachments like you used to. And I say that because we've got this Seven of Swords and Eight of Cups, and I can't help but think, looking at the rest of these cards as well, that there is a personal issue that's coming into resolution, and it's coming into resolution with this idea of moving away from things that, have been a strong emotional cord here in the Eight of Cups, but you're Now seeing that by hanging on to these emotional attachments, you're limiting yourself with the Seven of Swords. So it's almost like you're taking your Seven Swords and you're saying, I'm walking away from this experience because it doesn't serve me. Yes, there are emotional connections, but ultimately you're surrendering the drama. And that's causing so much change, and it's also bringing a personal issue into closure, resolution. You're closing out a cycle here with this energy of these two cards. And the surrender the drama card says here, no matter how emotionally charged the situation, remain calm and don't contribute to the drama. Staying centered will help resolve the issue more quickly. Another card here using the word resolving issue. You are resolution. You are in a state of resolution, change. You're surrendering the drama of a situation, and you're not doing this alone. You're doing this with your higher self. Seeing co-create in reverse says to me that you might have tried doing this completely on your own. We see soul solitude here, but I feel like the change that's coming in to really help guide you through this is through your higher self, which is the message of this card in reverse. This idea that you don't have to do it alone, that you can go within and connect with your higher self to have all of the guidance that you need in order to sort of understand where you need to surrender the drama, where the emotional cords that are keeping you connected to a certain situation, relationship, or time of your life. It doesn't even have to be related necessarily to a relationship that's even active right now. It might just be some experience that you haven't been able to release fully from your energy. And the cords are sort of, in my mind, I see these cords wrapped around you and you're setting yourself free. The message on the soul solitude card says your soul needs attention. There are moments when it's important to get away, not just from the noise of the outside world, but to find a place in your soul where you can experience peace and quiet. This is a time to pause, a time to reflect, a time for you. I feel like doing that is connecting you to your higher self and to the divine, which is trying to guide you right now to stay authentic, to connect to your authenticity in a way that says, this no longer serves me. These 8 cups are no longer for me. I've learned everything I can from that experience, and now it's time to walk away from it. It's time to surrender the drama, because even though it's very emotionally charged, this experience really holds no inner peace for you anymore. Connecting to this feels frantic and panicky, and like it just doesn't feel like you can be in your own center when you're in this experience anymore. And I feel like right now, seeing this message of natural beauty and authenticity is guiding you to love and accept yourself authentically, which makes me think that this experience, the one that you're cutting the cords to, had you questioning your authenticity, had you questioning yourself to a point where there was this trickery and deception that we see reflected in the Seven of Swords, as well as these 2 chakra cards. And it was a relationship. It was something that you had a relationship to. It might have been a person or an experience, like we said, but it almost feels like there was trickery there. As you can see, it was tricking you into thinking that your perception of yourself was wrong, that being authentic was wrong. It almost feels like this experience that you're being guided to release in this full moon of Virgo had you questioning your own authenticity. It was an illusion. It was tricking you. It was it almost feels like a test. Sometimes I don't love the way that sounds, but it almost feels like it was a test to see, are you going to choose you, or are you going to stay wrapped up in the drama of this other situation that was it was deceptive. It was tricking you. It appeared to be one way when really all along it was something else. And I feel like right now you're choosing you. You're choosing the authentic you, pile 2. And with that choice, you're you're working closely with your higher self to understand all of this treasure and abundance and where it lies. And it's interesting seeing this Treasure Island card with this Autumn card. We're going to talk about the Autumn card in a moment, but this Treasure Island card sort of speaks in a way with the rest of these cards to say that right now, as you make your choices to disengage with the drama, to leave behind this trickery and trusting your own perception of your authenticity, you're working very, very closely with the law of attraction here. And it's aligning you to where your energy goes. And so if your energy is focused on being authentic and focused on shifting away from drama and this personal issue that needs resolution, you're sort of cutting ties with anything that's limiting you. I feel like right now you're going to be attracting so much abundance, and it's going to bring in such good fortune for you because you're choosing yourself. You're choosing the authentic you. And that's going to help you stay centered, which will help you resolve this energetic connection that you still have, an emotional attachment to this experience, relationship, whatever. It's shifting. And it's shifting into a new time for you. When we see this Autumn card, that makes me feel like this is a new season for you. You're moving from drama into yourself. You're moving within, and you're not taking this emotional cargo with you. This is a time where you are harvesting the seeds you've planted. You're seeing the change. The seeds that you have planted are starting to bloom, and you're starting to see how you're working with this law of attraction and how staying authentic and staying centered and moving away from anything that is drama or trickery, anything that's an illusion, is starting to actually yield results here. This is a time where things are starting to grow. So if you've been planting seeds of worry, if you've been planting seeds of sort of this energy of judgment or worry, that's what you're going to see grow. But I feel like you've surrendered that. I feel like what you're going to see grow are the seeds that you've planted towards your abundance and towards this idea of your authenticity blossoming and showing you this wonderful energy of how things can change. This is beautiful. I feel like you have some weeds to pluck out of your garden, and that's what this card represents. But that the vastness of what you've planted is blooming into exactly what is in alignment with you at this time. And yes, are there some weeds? Of course. Is there some work you need to do in your garden to make sure that the plants that you want to see grow have the space to grow? Absolutely. Are you creating that space? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Are you creating space by removing things that you just feel no longer serve you? And by staying centered, I feel like you're going to be able to identify which plants are weeds that may be disguised as something else, right? There is that element of trickery here, and trusting your perception and knowing the difference between what's your higher self and what is any kind of sort of limiting belief that might be coming in to trick you or deceive you into thinking that you're not able to connect to your higher self, deceiving you into thinking that you need to cling to things that are dramatic and you need to stay fighting instead of setting yourself free from anything that feels like a dramatic battle. And remember, it really is this idea of a personal issue coming into resolution. And I feel like this is something you've been working on. You've been working on this, and it's coming into its stage of autumn where you're about to yield your harvest. but it comes with this walking away. It comes with surrendering drama. It comes with centering yourself by connecting to yourself, really focusing on the self rather than anything external at this time. Really giving your full attention to that inner garden that you're growing. And I feel like you're attracting so much right now that serves you, that anything that doesn't serve you is going to stand out like a sore thumb. And it's interesting. I see this very clearly in my mind as a garden, that you're going to know as you're walking through your garden, as long as you stay centered and you stay sort of in a place where you're grounded, you're going to walk through your garden and know that's a weed and that's the plant I'm trying to grow. You won't confuse them. You will know. You're right now at a place, I feel, where your perception is very high, and you're very much aware of what serves you and what doesn't serve you, what you want to see grow and what you want to see change or ripped out of your garden entirely. And it's interesting. I feel like you've been focused on that and it's starting to bloom. You're going to start to see those plants, those metaphorical plants, blooming and changing the landscape of your garden. And I think it's going to look very different. You may have had a lot of weeds that had a lot of deep roots in your garden, and when you start digging them out, you realize how deeply rooted those emotionally charged dramas are in your garden, and pulling them out, it's almost like you feel the pain of pulling them out. You feel it, but you also feel the surrender and release once you finally reach the roots and you toss it over to the side, and it's created so much space in your garden for new roots to take place and new plants to grow. And it's like you're removing anything that's false. Anything that's false has got to go. And you're very much attuned to the falseness and noise in the outside world, the drama. Pile 2, there's so much interesting activity in your reading where it feels like you're getting your hands into the dirt, the metaphorical dirt of your garden. You're going in deep and you're pulling out things that don't serve you, even if there's it almost feels like as you pull them out, you release your own cry of emotional release. It's like you're connected to these plants very deeply. This feels almost like you're releasing karmic bonds. You're choosing new outcomes in past life connections. So that might be why it's so intense emotionally, because you recognize on a soul level that you've had these relationships or these experiences once before or many times before. And I feel like you're choosing a new outcome this time. It almost feels karmic that you're sort of releasing these karmic loads, these karmic debts, and it's pushing you into this authentic space where you're really attracting what serves you and what isn't a trick, what isn't a deception, what isn't drama, the noise of the outside world. You're surrendering that. And it's bringing you to a place of change and resolution where you're working very closely with your higher self to attract abundance, joy, and this natural state of you being in the very natural state of yourself, which really fits with the full moon in Virgo. It's like you're stepping into this natural state again. It's interesting. It almost feels like you're leaving behind the falseness that you may have once thought was the truth, and now you know it's false. You're seeing past the veil here, and you're cleaning things up. You're going into cleanup phase here. and I love it. It's such a nice energy to be sitting in right now because it's actually very empowering, and it's coming right from the heart center. You're starting to love yourself as you are without falling for the tricks of the outside world that say that you need to be something you're not. And I think you're starting to say to yourself that you truly do love yourself as you are. And anything that tries to convince you otherwise, you're ripping it right out of the garden because you don't want to see that bloom and take over the garden again. And I feel like it may have at one point, it's interesting. This is truly a big shift for you, pile 2. Wow, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for joining me for this reading, pile 2. I hope it's resonated. Let me know in the comments below if this was your reading. All right, we'll see you again soon for another reading, my friends. Take care. Pile 3, welcome to your reading, my friends. Let's get started and see what messages you received in your pile. Okay. Interesting. We'll get all the cards flipped over and then we'll start. Oh, you got 3 of these. Then we'll start looking at them. You got lots of multiples. Wow, you got 3 from both of these decks. That's interesting. Wowzers. Okay. Wowzers? Oh my goodness, I haven't said that in a long time. That's funny. Okay, this is really beautiful. What lovely, lovely energy surrounding you right now, pile 3. Okay. You got tons of cards here. We'll go through them all and see how they work together. The first card that is getting my attention right now is this abundance card. Okay. This abundance card is coming through with 2 other cards next to it. One of opportunity and one of security. So this is incredible. You are stepping into a secure opportunity that is bringing in so much abundance. Pile 3. You are moving into a secure time where you can feel like you can breathe and relax and surrender. And what are you surrendering to? You're surrendering to your soul's path, and it's bringing in this amazing opportunity of security and abundance. And it's wonderful to see because I feel like you've been tested. Looking at the rest of your cards, you've been tested, and you may have even felt like calling it in at one point. You may have been like, this is too much. I can't do this. I don't know what's going on. Everything's changing, everything's shifting, and your commitment may have been tested, and you may have been really struggling to see the bigger picture here. But ultimately, it feels like you have realized that your life's journey has been perfectly designed for your soul's growth. And that every lesson and every moment that you've sort of been encountering on this recent journey, it feels recent. It feels recent in like maybe the last year or so, you've been really changing things. And like I said, your commitment has been tested. It's been tested significantly. And I think it's been a challenge to look at the bigger picture, seeing that reversed. And it's also been difficult to move through this energy gaining momentum, because as this energy has been gaining momentum, I think it's brought in a lot of change and a lot of feelings where you may have felt very insecure, and you may have felt like your abundance was unavailable for some reason, like you may have really been questioning that. But I think what really got you through this experience was gratitude. It's very interesting. It says here, life is one big continuous circle of giving and receiving energy. Be thankful for be thankful for who and what in your life instead of complaining about what you have. If you focus on gratitude, you'll start to attract prosperity and abundance. And I think that's exactly what you did. I think at one point you did surrender. And at one point you must have sort of started to focus on gratitude, or you need to. If you're not there yet, this reading is your sign to say that this opportunity that's bringing in security and abundance is around the corner. The energy is gaining momentum. If you can look at the bigger picture and be grateful, even though your commitment is being tested, this is a time where I feel like you're in cleanup. You're in cleanup phase. Seeing this clean it up, in reverse says that there's just like the few remnants left of the old path. The path that got you to this moment, there's like particles in the air that you still need to sort of clean up. And how are you going to clean it up? It feels like by tuning into gratitude and forgiveness. Forgiveness and gratitude are going to bring you to a place of wisdom where you understand your soul's path. And we're seeing the heart chakra card confirming that wisdom in your heart. So the heart chakra centers around love and forgiveness. If you want to simplify it, it unifies your lower self and your higher self. Your lower self is what grounds you to being here on earth. And your higher self is what connects you to your cosmic or your inner self, your divine connection. And so the heart center is right in the center, connecting both. And it's almost like it takes your lower self and your higher self and gets them to work together. And that's how we gain energy around situations, is by sort of balancing the lower self and the higher self, which can be tricky business because the lower self can get stuck. It can get stuck in fear. It's what roots you to earth. And so when you root yourself into earth, what happens? Sometimes you can get stuck in feeling insecure. You can get stuck feeling a lot of fear and anxiety and this idea that you don't know who you are. You can step into these identity crises where we start to really question and spiral into these moments where we think we're lost. But every single lesson, every single moment has been on the right path. You're actually never on the wrong path. You're always on the right path, pile 3. And I feel like you have understood that recently, or you're being guided to tune into that now. Seeing the Ace of Cups and the Hierophant, they kind of came out in reverse, but because it's a pick-a-pile reading, I'm not really reading reversals, but if we look at both sides of these two energies, we can see this idea of needing to give love and receive love with the Ace of Cups. So seeing it in the upright really speaks about this abundance and about this new beginning, this new abundant, prosperous energy that is overflowing. This is your holy grail overflowing, bringing you to this sort of beautiful place where you can forgive, where you can love and forgive and be empathetic and sort of start again with a healed emotional space. This could also be bringing in, when you look at its reversed energy, this idea of needing to put that energy to yourself by needing to focus on loving yourself, forgiving yourself, knowing and loving yourself as you are without blocking or sort of judging yourself. This is unconditional love. This is the kind of love that you give your inner child and sort of envelop them, to reparent them in a sense, to say, you're safe. I love you. And I love you as you are. And it's almost like that sense of security allows you to feel very grateful and to see what is so abundant in your life, to see the abundance and to understand the wisdom of your experience so far. And so I feel like that really goes well with the Hierophant, either upright or in reverse, because this is a time where you may be challenged in a way that, again, your commitment is being tested, right? Will you do things the way of tradition and convention, or will you reject tradition and convention and sort of strike out on your own with the divine guiding you, but not through the sort of, not by passing through the gates that have been established through dogma or convention or tradition in your life. You're striking out on your own. It's almost like this idea of, I'm almost seeing it as like an ocean with a beam of light shining into the ocean, and you're gravitating towards that beam of light. Instead of staying in the safety of the ocean, you're sort of saying, I'm curious about that beam of light shining in and I want to follow it. And it's like you're moving towards it, even though it's sort of unconventional. But it's I think caused quite a bit of change in your life. I think it's caused quite a bit of restructuring, or it will, coming through right now, is this idea of a lot of restructuring away from things that may have felt conventional or traditional to you. And you're sort of in that phase of cleanup where you're sort of removing the last bit of the old version of yourself. And again, there's nothing wrong with that version of yourself. It's just you're evolving, you're expanding. The energy is gaining momentum, and I feel like you've managed to sort of see the bigger picture, and you understand your own inner wisdom in a way that's allowing you to sort of filter out the noise and thoughts of the world around you. The external world is sort of no longer necessary for you to feel validated. Like I said, you're enveloping that inner child and loving it unconditionally. So you're not looking to the external world for validation. You're not being sort of at the center of the noise of the outer world and sort of needing to be part of that. I feel like you right now are at a place where you might be sort of questioning certain things about that outer world. And you might be thinking to yourself, am I absorbing the energies of those around me, or am I sort of focused on my energy and not matching energy outside of myself? It's interesting, like, are the outer energies in your experience coloring who you are, or is it the other way around? Is your energy coloring your external environment? These are sort of the questions I feel like you're looking at, and you're trying to understand the wisdom of your own spiritual and soul path right now. But it's bringing you to some new opportunities that are going to be secure. So release the fear. I think that that's an important message that you're getting here, where you're sort of rising above this energy, this crowd surfing card. You're rising above this, and you're not being impacted by the thoughts of others and the emotional projections around you, because I think you've understood on a very fundamental level that that isn't the real you, that the projections of the external world are the reflection of things that you have maybe projected out, but it doesn't mean that you have to match that. It's very interesting, if you want to see the outer world shift around you, shift the inner world. And I think that's where your focus is right now. You're shifting on an inner level, and it's had a lot of effects. Like, you've experienced quite a few changes, I think, in your daily life, to be honest. But it may be that there's some lingering things here with this clean it up energy that kind of showed up in reverse for you, suggesting that there are things that still need to be dusted away. This idea that you might be focusing too much on other people right now, which is why you're getting this message to sort of crowd surf. The crowd surfing where you sort of jump on top and the crowd carries you on their hands. You're needing to rise above that. It may be that you're trying too hard to be helpful, and that you're trying too hard to fit in, and you're questioning yourself and your path and saying, how come my path doesn't look like their path? Well, the truth is no one's path looks alike. It's just that might be a belief that you're holding about yourself because you may have always felt like you didn't fit in. Pile 3, you might be my light worker pile, where you have always felt like you just don't fit in, and you've judged yourself for that. You've judged yourself for not fitting in. But I feel like it's changing. You're now starting to be grateful for who you are. You're now starting to forgive the hurt that you have felt for not fitting in, and the judgment. You're starting to forgive yourself for judging yourself so harshly. And you're starting to see the wisdom that it's okay that you don't fit in. It's okay that you're not conventional. And it's okay that you you don't want to be conventional, and you might not want to fit in anymore. You might be looking around yourself and thinking, ooh, I'm glad I don't fit in. I love myself as I am, and I'm grateful for my soul's path because it's really taught me to love myself. This is very interesting. You're not helping yourself by feeling responsible for others. You don't need to be needed in order to feel worthy of love and abundance and security. And this is interesting. I think you're really breaking a pattern here where you don't need to clean up someone else's side of the street. You're needing to focus on your side of the street. And if you are feeling called to relieve other people's burdens, the question to be asking yourself now is, at what cost? At what cost, pile 3? It will come at the cost of your own security, it seems. You're being guided to focus on your soul's path. And that's not me saying be selfish and only think about yourself, but don't look external for the markers of validation and worthiness. Give that to yourself. Give that to yourself. I know your commitment has been tested. You've gone through it. I really feel like this is my light worker pile, and that you're learning to love yourself unconditionally and to forgive yourself for any times you didn't love yourself unconditionally, or you judged yourself for not fitting in, or you're starting to forgive yourself for being a people pleaser, and that you were matching energy to be worthy of love or to feel needed so that you felt worthy of love. And I feel like you're reversing that. You're surrendering that, and you're starting to trust that your path to abundance lies in feeling secure with yourself. And that is going to attract in opportunities for you because you're starting to see things on a bigger picture. I think you may have been looking at things and really judging yourself for not being like others. And maybe it's been a big misunderstanding for you up until this point where you thought you had to be like others. And I can't help but feel like you felt this judgment, this self-imposed judgment that said, I don't fit in, and therefore blank, blank, blank. Instead of feeling like I am unique in my authenticity, and that is my soul's path. And healing that inner wound that says I'm not worthy of love as I am is being tested. And I think you're passing that test with flying colors. And there is abundance awaiting you. There is security awaiting you. Opportunities await you. Your gratitude is attracting so much prosperity and abundance to you. And it's interesting. I feel like you've really flipped the script here. Instead of complaining and judging yourself for not fitting in and complaining about the state of things, you're now grateful for the state of things. And you're seeing that this idea that you don't need to be needed by someone else to be worthy of love. And that is a game changer. Pile 3, that is your game changer. You are crowd surfing. You are rising above the external environment to see that it's wonderful and beautiful and purposeful that you are unlike those around you at this time. And I think that the other astrological events happening in March are not only going to show you that you can love yourself for your authenticity, but that also you're going to understand something about your soul's growth and purpose by maintaining this course. That wisdom is about to explode your whole life into this new path of opportunity, security, and abundance. And the energy is gaining a lot of momentum. So hold on to your hats, pile 3, because this is about to really take you in a new direction. And you've done this. You're taking yourself in the direction that is perfectly designed for your soul's growth. Wow. I'm going to leave it at that. Wow. Thank you so much for joining me for this reading, my friends. Please let me know in the comments below how this pile has resonated for you. And I look forward to reading for you again soon. Take care.